What's up, nerds? I'm Kandruk, your not-so-friendly neighborhood otaku, and welcome to my channel where I talk all things anime, manga, manhwa, and webcomics. If that's the type of thing you're into, then subscribe because I'll put 2 to 3 shorts of anime commentary out every week and 1 full-length video out every week, all at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we're going to be continuing the series where I go back and reread the Jujutsu Kaisen manga over from the beginning and bring you all along with me. As always, this series is great for anyone who's a first-time JJK fan, anime only, or who wants to get caught up. Today we're going to be diving into volume 15, so without further ado, let's take a look at chapter 125. In chapter 125, we see Fumi, a childhood friend of Nobara's, move into their small countryside village in grade school. Everyone in her class had either a red or black backpack, making her light blue one stand out. However, young Nobara wanted the light blue backpack, so she approaches Fumi for a trade, beginning their friendship. After that, Nobara would stop by Fumi's house all the time after school to play Super Smash Bros. With her dad. Nobara didn't like the people in the village and really only hung out with Fumi. Their village was so small that it was harder to be strangers than to make friends. At first, Fumi thought that would be a good thing, but Nobara didn't like it. Several years later, when Fumi was brought red bean rice to celebrate her womanhood by a neighbor, this made her uncomfortable and helped her understand why Nobara didn't like living in such a small village. One day, while they were still kids, Nobara took Fumi to her secret base, which was actually just a girl named Saori's house. Saori was older than them and moved into the village after Fumi. She was always home and would welcome Nobara and Fumi anytime they randomly stopped by. Fumi believed Nobara changed after meeting Saori, becoming more refined. But after several incidents where villagers vandalized her home, Saori moved out of the village. All Fumi can remember about saying goodbye to Saori is Nobara's messy crying face, since it was the first time she ever saw her cry. Then in June of 2018, Nobara got the approval to transfer to a school in Tokyo. Nobara and Fumi met to say their goodbyes as the former prepared to board a train out of town. Excited to escape the village, Nobara made it a point that she would never return, and Fumi was disappointed that Nobara didn't shed tears for her like she did for Saori. This selfish line of thinking was so embarrassing and guilt-inducing for Fumi that it made it hard for her to speak up at the time. But Nobara gets Fumi's attention and tells them that when they all reunite, the 3 of them will be together. Nobara blushes from the influx of emotion, and after a moment, Fumi begins to cry and agree with her. In the present, we see Saori working in the office late at night. Her coworker points out something dangerous is happening in Shibuya, but Saori ignores it. Instead, she tells her coworker about her time in the countryside and how she met a young girl named Nobara, and Saori thinks Nobara and Fumi would be disappointed in her if they saw her today. Meanwhile, Nobara holds her face and recalls everyone in the village being crazy. She used to believe lots of people were crazy, and they got in the way of other people's lives. That was until she attended Tokyo Jujutsu High and learned that being crazy isn't so bad after all. She thinks of her friends and apologizes to Fumi for being unable to meet her again in the future. Nobara then looks at Yuuji's concerned face and tells him to make sure everyone knows it wasn't so bad. Then Nobara's face swells up around her left eye and bursts from the effects of Mahito's idol transfiguration. Yuuji watches in horror as Nobara's eye comes violently out of her head and blood spatters on his face. In chapter 126, we flash back to when the 3 first-year students were lounging at a table one day and Nobara knocks her drink over onto Gojo's shirt. Unamused, Nobara tries to pass the blame off on Ijichi for leaving them alone with Gojo's freshly dry-cleaned shirt. Megumi and Yuuji disagree, and the 3 of them work together to try and blot the stain out. But despite their best efforts, most of the shirt remains stained. Thinking it would be cheap to replace, Nobara tells Megumi to look it up. However, she and Yuuji are dumbfounded when Megumi shows them the shirt cost 250,000 yen before tax. Before Gojo arrives, they hide the dirty shirt inside Megumi's uniform, annoying him. Gojo immediately noticed the bulge in Megumi's uniform, and unable to pretend any longer, Yuuji and Nobara let out their laughs and took the shirt out of Megumi's uniform. This pleasant memory, though, is a stark contrast to reality. Currently, Nobara lies before Yuuji, missing an eye and likely dead. Losing to Choso, Sukuna's rampage, and Nanami's death have already taken their toll on Yuuji's resolve. Having reached its limit a long time ago, Yuuji's spirit breaks after Nobara is unable to respond to him desperately calling her name. Satisfied with himself, Mahito commends his own talents and believes he is a true curse. He not only reinforces a punch with cursed energy, but successfully unleashes Black Flash on Yuuji. Mahito's Black Flash sends Yuuji crashing through the station. The special grade curse continues to beat Yuuji while exposing his determination for being weak. Mahito believes this isn't simply a battle to fix things. It's a war of truths. And he believes he and Yuuji are the same, since he kills without hesitation, just as Yuuji saves people without a second thought. This battle pits the instincts of a curse against dignified human reasoning, and will determine which of the 2 remains standing 100 years from now. After thoroughly beating Yuuji down mentally and physically, Mahito asks the student how he ever planned on winning. He then asks Yuuji if he's ever counted how many curses he's exercised, continuing his belief that they're the same, since he's never cared about how many people he's killed. He morphs his arm into a giant praying mantis-like claw and attempts to kill Yuuji. However, there's a clapping noise and suddenly, Mahito's displaced. Aoi appears just in time, using Boogie Woogie to switch places places with Mahito. Then Kyoto first year Arata joins the scene after medically treating Nobara. He believes Nobara's probably going to die and tells Aoi not to blame him for it later. Then Aoi tells Yuuji that he must wake up as their battle is just beginning. In chapter 127, helpless and trembling on the ground in front of Aoi and Arata, Yuuji claims that he can't fight anymore. Not only did he witness Nobara's possible death, but Nanami was killed in front of him by Mahito as well. To add to Yuuji's suffering, Sukuna slaughtered hundreds, possibly thousands of people, and Yuuji felt he needed to help others to compensate. However, he feels he failed completely in that regard. Yuuji wanted to avoid feeling like nothing but a murderer, but now that's the exact position he's in. Crying and writhing on the ground, Yuuji expresses that he simply can't forgive himself. Enticed by Yuuji's suffering, Mahito jumps at the group of sorcerers with his arm shaped into a thorned weapon. Then Aoi claps his hands to activate Boogie Woogie to switch Mahito's position in the air with Arata behind them. Mahito attempts to turn around and attack Aoi, but the third-year student switches the curse's position with Yuuji's. Taken off guard, Mahito is left wide open to a powerful kick that sends him flying towards Arata. Aoi quickly swaps Arata and Mahito again, and takes position in front of his juniors to face off against the special grade curse alone. Impressed, Mahito laughs and admits that Aoi's technique is extremely disorienting despite knowing how it works. At the same time, Aoi tells Yuuji not to limit himself to sins or punishments. He believes as long as they keep living, those who have passed on will have never truly been defeated. Aoi adds that looking for logic and meaning in death can defile the memories of those who pass, but he still asks Yuuji what he's been entrusted with. He tells Yuuji that he doesn't need the answer right now, but until he does, Yuuji can never stop fighting. Aoi believes that is the only true punishment Jujutsu sorcerers must endure. Then he runs ahead to fight Mahito. Arata quickly treats Yuuji by applying his curse technique, and he informs Yuuji that his injuries won't get any worse from here on out unless he sustains new ones. Arata has already done the same for Nobara. He admits that she doesn't have a pulse and isn't breathing, but encourages Yuuji by saying there isn't a 0% chance of survival. After trying to instill some hope in Yuuji, Arata takes Nobara and retreats out of the station. Mahito tries to attack Aoi by splitting himself in an attempt to outmaneuver Aoi's curse technique. However, Aoi proves to be efficient at avoiding Mahito. A small transfigured human behind Aoi transforms into a large spike, but the third year avoids the attack. It barely cuts Aoi's shirt, and Mahito's disappointed his opponent didn't clap. Even so, Mahito is confident after tapping into the power of Black Flash, hoping to do so once again, believing it's drawing him closer to the true essence of his soul. Then Aoi suddenly claps and interrupts Mahito's train of thought. Yuuji appears before the cursed spirit, back in the fight and with a fist charged with cursed energy. He reminds himself of Nanami's last words, "You've got it from here," and silently apologizes to his fallen mentor for almost using his sins as an excuse to run, and promises to take on his share of suffering in the future. Focused and recommitted to the battle, Yuuji unleashes the sparks of Black Flash on Mahito, destroying the curse's arm. Mahito is knocked back but quickly heals his wound. Amused, Mahito smiles and says that Yuuji is back from the dead. Aoi welcomes him back into the battle, and Yuuji stands beside him, ready to fight. In chapter 128, on the train to Shibuya, Miwa holds one of Mekamaru's communication devices in her hand. She's disappointed that Kokichi's voice tells her the Shibuya incident will be settled any moment now and to turn back. But Miwa ignores him and asks why he only let Aoi and Arata go to Shibuya. Kokichi doctored the documents so everyone else, including Urahime, would be away from Shibuya on October 31st. Miwa asks if she's useless and weak since he didn't trust her, but Kokichi argues that he's the weak one. He confesses there was someone he loved and he believed they would be fine regardless of the state of the world as long as they were together. Kokichi wanted this to be the case even if that girl didn't want protection from him. With his time running out, Kokichi says his goodbyes as Miwa cries over losing him. Kokichi asks Miwa to find her happiness, saying that as long as she does that, his wish will have come true. For a moment, Kokichi appears sitting next to Miwa in the reflection of the window as he says goodbye. His reflection disappears as she looks up at the window, symbolizing that he's gone for good. The other students who were left out of the Shibuya incident can hear Miwa crying from another car on the train. Mai asks Urahime about Mekamaru's betrayal, but Urahime believes it doesn't matter since Kokichi was killed. Noritoshi is disappointed Mekamaru expected so little from them, but Momo is simply enraged that he made her cute junior cry. Meanwhile, in Shibuya Station, the battle between Mahito, Yuuji, and Aoi rages on. With his fighting spirit reignited, Yuuji fights effectively alongside Aoi to keep Mahito on the defensive. Mahito knows Aoi's soul is at full strength, so one transfiguration might not be enough to kill him, whereas Yuuji's soul is in a much less stable state, but Mahito isn't exactly in great shape either. He's currently at 40% of his full strength after having his double destroyed and being hit with Black Flash. All that started with Nobara, making Mahito admit that despite being a nobody to him, Nobara left her mark on this battle. Mahito plans to deal with Aoi switching first and tries to use a transfigured human to distract Yuuji. However, Mahito is surprised when Aoi uses Boogie Woogie to swap places with the transfigured human. This allows him to get behind Mahito and forces the curse to destroy his own weapon at the same time. Aoi feels he's being left behind now that Mahito can use Black Flash as well. He refuses to let Yuuji feel alone and unleashes the sparks of black himself. By delivering a perfect high kick, Aoi Aoi hits Mahito with Black Flash. Mahito's arm is broken by Aoi's Black Flash, but he doesn't believe Aoi will be able to hurt him like that. Even so, Mahito recognizes that all three fighters have reached 120% of their potential. Mahito voluntarily vomits up several small transfigured humans and combines them using soul multiplicity. Then he immediately activates Body Repel, creating multiple transfigured snake-like heads that attempt to chomp Yuuji and Aoi. Body Repel breaks through the underground of Shibuya into the streets above, and Yuuji and Aoi are forced to move and evade the attacks in the air. Aoi recognizes that Mahito is countering Boogie Woogie by attacking from all directions. He admits it's time for them to reach the next level of the battle, and Mahito adds that it's their last chance to curse each other. In chapter 129, Mahito yells at Yuuji that it's their last chance to curse one another. Asking if the curse forgot about him, Aoi swaps all three of their positions, so he is holding Mahito, then slams him head first into the ground. Yuuji attempts to smash Mahito's head with a kick, but the curse dismembers his neck to avoid the blow. Mahito's body grows two eyes and transforms his arms into blades before attacking the sorcerers. At the same time, Mahito's head grows a second body and stands behind his other half to activate soul multiplicity. This time, Mahito combines souls with a weak rejection to form one powerful transfigured human using polymorphic soul isomer. Aoi uses Boogie Woogie continuously to give his side advantageous positions against their enemy. He believes the power between the two Mahitos isn't split 50-50, and the weakened body is the real Mahito since it used idle transfiguration. Before taking out Mahito's real self, Aoi attempts to take out the polymorphic soul isomer. However, much to his surprise, Aoi is suddenly smacked aside with an extremely powerful blow. The impact sends Aoi crashing through the building and onto the road, but he manages to recover his balance. The polymorphic soul isomer confronts the Grade 1 sorcerer, and Aoi attacks by infusing a rock with cursed energy and swapping places with it behind his opponent. Much to Aoi's surprise, one hit is enough to kill the polymorphic soul isomer. There are now two more facing him, and he asks their forgiveness before taking them out. While Mahito is free of Boogie Woogie, he decides to pile on the attacks against Yuuji. He uses a more ferocious version of Body Repel to attack, but Yuuji avoids it and drop kicks Mahito through the air. Mahito counters by grabbing Yuji's leg and slamming him into the ground. When the dust settles from the crash, Mahito attempts to follow up the attack, but he's irritated to find Aoi standing by Yuji's side. Mahito is surprised that not even two polymorphic soul isomers were enough to stall or defeat Aoi. He can't transfigure Aoi without being able to touch him, and Sukuna would kill him if he attempts domain expansion. It's too complex for Mahito to exclude Yuuji from a domain's barrier, so he decides to take inspiration from his battle with Gojo. Yuuji and Aoi are both shocked when Mahito activates domain expansion's self-embodiment of perfection. They believe this action would normally be suicide, but Mahito is ready to bet on an all-or-nothing domain expansion of 0.2 seconds. In chapter 130, Mahito activates his all-or-nothing domain expansion of 0.2 seconds, taking his opponents off guard. Aoi quickly activates simple domain, which he learned from Yuki Tsukumo, and Yuji's even faster, already running towards Mahito in an attempt to exercise him before idle transfiguration can activate. However, Mahito is the fastest of all three. The two-step process of realizing one's innate domain and the activation of their curse technique are combined into one step by Mahito, who has awakened through Black Flash. As a result of activating his domain expansion, Mahito enters Sukuna's innate domain for a moment. He asks Sukuna if this is a safe space and inquires about his agreement with Yuji. The King of Curses remains silent, but Mahito revokes his questioning tone in order to challenge Sukuna. He arrogantly claims Yuji will be dead before Sukuna can switch consciousnesses with him and tells Sukuna to shut up and watch. As self-embodiment of perfection ends, Aoi's left hand begins to transfigure. Yuji turns around to check on Aoi, and Mahito knocks him to the ground while his back is turned. Aoi quickly severs his own hand, but this leaves him vulnerable to the approaching special grade curse spirit. After activating domain expansion, the user's innate technique becomes difficult to control. Mahito became aware of this fact after escaping Sarazukoro High. He instead attacks Aoi with a strong punch to the stomach, enhanced by Black Flash that sends Aoi reeling. Aoi instinctively concentrated all of his cursed energy to defend against the blow and minimize damage, surprising Mahito. Mahito becomes able to activate idle transfiguration and plans to kill Aoi with the next hit, but Mahito's focus is suddenly interrupted when Aoi's necklace falls to the ground, and the locket opens to show small photos of Yuji and Takata. While his opponent is distracted, Aoi uses Mahito's hand to clap and activate Boogie Woogie. Aoi instantly switches places with Yuji, who strikes Mahito in the face with another Black Flash. Aoi collapses and looks at his remaining hand, noting it's a miracle that he's alive. Ready to finish the fight alone, Yuji looks back at Aoi and thanks him for his help. Heavily injured, Mahito creates a polymorphic soul isomer to hold Yuji off, admitting that Aoi was a problem for him till the very end. Despite his condition, Mahito believes he's found the true essence of his soul from their previous exchange. Yuji defeats the polymorphic soul isomer, and Mahito evolves into the final stage of his being. Then, Mahito activates idle transfiguration, instant spirit body of distorted killing. In chapter 131, in the midst of the city ruins, Yuji glares at his greatest enemy and wonders what this new transfiguration brings to the table. Idle transfiguration, instant spirit body of distorted distorted killing has allowed Mahito to ascend to his true form. The cursed spirit feels reborn and asks Yuuji to wish him happy birthday to celebrate this monumental occasion. Having unleashed Black Flash, Mahito believes he has tapped into his true, unbridled soul. Yuuji didn't take Mahito to be one for a journey of self-discovery. Amused, Mahito replies that his rebirth has just begun. Only after killing Yuuji does Mahito believe he can truly be born anew. The two fighters blitz one another with blinding speed to reignite the battle. Mahito makes the first move, creating a shockwave with just the wave of his arm. Yuuji ducks under the wave of debris and attacks with a straight kick that's caught by the black hairs protruding from Mahito's head. The curse tries to take advantage of a tail whip, but Yuuji blocks it with his knee. Both fighters return to neutral, and Yuuji is able to parry Mahito's punch and counter with an uppercut to the body. However, Yuji's curse-infused punch deals absolutely zero damage. Mahito's body is now even harder than Choso's was at the end of his battle with Yuuji. Mahito knocks Yuuji away and forces him to realize that the cursed spirit transcended beyond his former state. They trade blows, but Yuji's attacks are no longer able to reach his opponent. Yuuji is overwhelmed and slammed into the street by Mahito, creating a giant crater from impact. The street crumbles and Yuuji falls to the bottom of the crater where several pipes have burst. As water fills the bottom of the crater where Yuuji stands across from Mahito, Yuuji realizes he can only win using Black Flash infused with his maximum cursed energy. Then Yuji's leg suddenly sinks into the shallow body of water. Mahito attempts to take advantage, but he finds himself coughing up blood and smaller areas of his body begin to fall apart. Yuuji hitting Mahito with Black Flash immediately after he activated his domain dealt serious damage, and the lasting effects of their long battle are now catching up to Mahito. Yuuji hits his leg to wake himself up, prompting Mahito to comment that they both still have plenty left in the tank. Mahito rushes his opponent as soon as he can, kicking up a large volume of water. Yuuji focuses on charging his cursed energy in his fist and ducks under Mahito's attack. While continuing to keep his right hand in a fist, Yuuji parries Mahito's attack. This puts them both in the position to attack with their free hand, with both fighters ready to deal the decisive blow. In chapter 132, we're reminded that there's not a single user of Jujutsu who can conjure Black Flash at will. However, Yuuji's fighting ability is so incredible he would make anyone watching believe he's capable of unleashing Black Flash at will. Mahito knows he's vulnerable to another one of Yuuji's Black Flash attacks, meaning going in recklessly would only lead to his end. Believing he has another countermeasure in mind, Mahito partially deactivates Instant Spirit Body of Distorted Killing on the left side of his body. Mahito believes Yuuji will aim for that sweet spot, and Yuuji indeed strikes Mahito's left side, appearing to take the bait. But just as Mahito goes for the kill, a second impact throws off the trajectory of his counter-strike. Since his fight with Choso, Yuuji has been able to control Divergent Fist. Yuuji then ducks under Mahito's missed attack and prepares to deal the final blow. Mahito reinforces his left side with Instant Spirit Body of Distorted Killing and tries to hit his opponent first. Suddenly, Aoi's voice echoes throughout the battlefield, interrupting Mahito's momentum. Aoi stands above the crater where they're fighting and tells the cursed spirit that an arm is simply a decoration, and the act of applause is the acclamation of the soul. Then Aoi uses his amputated arm to imitate clapping with his remaining hand. Trying to anticipate the switch, Mahito quickly turns around and attacks, but he ends up hitting nothing and realizes he's been fooled by Aoi one last time. Aoi apologizes and claims Boogie Woogie is already dead. Yuuji takes advantage of Aoi's clever thinking and strikes Mahito with Black Flash imbued with his maximum cursed energy. The impact from Yuuji is so fierce it coats his opponent in a streak of cursed energy that blasts the cursed spirit out of the crater. Mahito is heavily injured, depleted of cursed energy, and forced out of Instant Spirit Body of Distorted Killing. Additionally, Mahito is out of transfigured humans. As desperation sets in for Mahito for the first time in his existence, Yuuji stands over him. Just as the curse proclaimed earlier in their fight, Yuuji admits that he is Mahito. See, Yuuji no longer requires a reason to kill Mahito, and will exercise curses no matter what form they take. Fully aware that he's no more than a cog in the struggle between the two sides, Yuuji is content to play his role as a Jujutsu sorcerer against the threat of cursed spirits. Mahito attempts to flee as Yuuji chases him from behind, like a wolf chasing a rabbit through the snow. But before Yuuji can finish Mahito off for good, an even more powerful predator arrives. Sudogero suddenly appears before Mahito, standing over him and looking down on his fellow special grade. While Yuuji and Mahito are both surprised by his sudden appearance, Sudogero asks if he should save Mahito. In chapter 133, the final chapter of this volume, we flash back to when Aoi and Arata first arrived in Shibuya at 11:09 p.m. They headed straight for the Fukotoshin Line platform where Gojo was sealed and ran into a group of paralyzed non-sorcerers still left in a trance from being exposed to unlimited void. Aoi looks at the spot where Prison Realm dented the ground upon initially processing Gojo and confirmed the cursed object has been moved. Their goal then shifted from retrieving Gojo to rescue rescuing as many of their fellow sorcerers as they can. At 11:28 p.m., Panda used his gorilla mode to search the wreckage of the area in front of Shibuya Stream following Maximum Meteor's impact. He moved enough rubble to eventually locate Kusakabe. He was trapped under the rubble and slightly injured, but nothing life-threatening. Having nearly been killed by Sukuna's rampage, Kusakabe tells Panda Yuuji isn't like what he was told. Panda tried to explain to him that it was Sukuna who attacked them and not Yuuji, but Kusakabe doesn't accept that as an excuse. He claims that if Gojo disappears, he won't stand on Yuuji's side against the higher-ups as his students would have hoped, but rather would agree that Yuuji should be executed. At 10:36 p.m. in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Mei teased her younger brother about sharing the same bed while they were both naked until someone called her. She revealed to that person that she was nearly killed by Pseudo-Ghetto and had to escape using Ui's innate technique. She advised them to sell their Japanese stock in Tokyo real estate immediately. Mei shares this and other information so she could use it as a favor in future business endeavors. Around the same time Panda located Kusakabe, Choso was continuing to have flashbacks of Yuuji in his life alongside his brothers. After shedding a tear for his brothers, Choso decided he needed to move. Unsure of himself, Choso needs to know what Yuuji is. In the present, at 11:36 p.m., Pseudo-Ghetto asks Mahito if he needs saving. Yuuji acts quickly, recognizing Pseudo-Ghetto's name and appearance with the description of Gojo's captor. He demands Gojo back and rushes towards the curse user. Pseudo-Ghetto nonchalantly explains that people in the mid-Edo period spoke of a mysterious connection between catfish and earthquakes. At the same time, he summons a small catfish curse spirit that swims into the ground. Suddenly, a gigantic hole created by the curse appears underneath Yuuji. He loses balance and appears to fall into the hole. However, Yuuji abruptly falls to the ground as if the hole never existed. Pseudo-Ghetto asks if Yuuji believed he fell and says from a side view it looks like he just suddenly flipped over. Then Pseudo-Ghetto explains that the strength of curse spirit manipulation lies in the high number of moves at the user's disposal. By wielding multiple curse spirits of semi-grade 1 and higher, Pseudo-Ghetto can unleash different types of attacks every time his opponent adjusts to one. In fact, Pseudo-Ghetto doesn't even need to allow time for his opponent to overcome his technique. He can just pile them on. Pseudo-Ghetto then demonstrates this on Yuuji, using the curse that takes the form of a swarm of centipedes to ensnare Yuuji. Then the catfish curse opens another hole at the same time, suspending Yuuji in the air without balance before stacking another centipede attack and smashing the sorcerer into the ground with great force. Pseudo-Ghetto believes that Geto would have defeated Yuta if his curse spirits weren't divided for the night parade of 100 demons. As Yuji's on his hands and knees, bloodied from the attack, Pseudo-Ghetto realizes that the first year had nothing to do with that. Yuuji demands Gojo back and Pseudo-Ghetto laughs in response, while admitting that Sukuna's vessel is tough. Suddenly, Mahito desperately tries to attack Pseudo-Ghetto from behind, but to no avail. The cursed spirit admits he knew Geto's true plans for him all along since he was born of humans. Pseudo-Ghetto then absorbs Mahito as the cursed spirit utters his final words. After condensing Mahito into a black sphere, Pseudo-Ghetto asks Yuuji to continue discussing the future of the Jujutsu world. And that is everything in Volume 15. As always, huge thank you to everyone who made it all the way to the end. I know that these synopses can be kind of lengthy, but they personally are really useful to me as I go back and reread and really solidify in my mind what is happening in Jujutsu Kaisen. Keep your eye out for next week, where I'm going to give my final impressions on the 2024 winter anime that I watched. That is all for today though, and I will see you next time.